Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Lansing, and this is take one for the week of August 29. Peace be with you. Well, if Labor Day means you're going to be not in church, and even if you are going to be in church, I invite you to Google Revised Common Lectionary, and then the date for Sunday, September 5th, 2021, and spend some time with the readings for this coming Sunday, because they are very rich. There are two different Old Testament readings, Hebrew Bible readings. One is for the matches up with the gospel. The other is from the continuous cycle. The reading in all of it that stands out for me is a verse from Isaiah where it reads, "Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not be afraid. Here is your God." God comes with vengeance and terrible recompense. God comes to save you. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready for God to show up to save us. We're dealing with, I heard on the news today, a triple crisis with Afghanistan, COVID, and now the hurricane coming to the Gulf Coast. And let's not forget Haiti. And yet, I think Isaiah would be disappointed in the way that God comes, because God came in Jesus, and Jesus saved us on a cross and rose from the dead to reconcile us. And if you weren't looking and watching, and even if you were, you might have missed it. And so perhaps the best thing we can do these days is watch for signs of God coming among us. And the side that I'm thinking of today, I have my Camp Noah shirt on. I'm touching the logo to make sure it's on the camera here. Camp Noah is a camp for children who have experienced flooding, lost their homes. And this summer we had it in an online version in Gladwin and Midland counties. I want to thank Pastor David Sprang for heading it up, and for Pastor Danielle and the people at Trinity Midland for taking leadership roles, and everybody else whose names I don't have in front of me and that I've missed. But this is a sign of God being among us and coming to save us. I'm going to argue that vaccines and masks are signs of God being among us to save us. Someone said to me, God gives us the means to combat COVID, and we're not rallying to use them. So maybe the best thing we can do these days is look for signs of God's presence among us. For me this week, it's Camp Noah. The other reading from Proverbs is from Proverbs, and says something to the effect of a good name is to be cherished more than riches, favor more than silver and gold. And the reading is the epistle reading is from James, in which James kind of says to his hearers, the way you favor the rich over the poor, I wonder if you do in fact believe in the Lord Jesus. And so the comfort, I guess, for me is that money, or mammon as I call it, has been a power at work among God's people for a long time, certainly back to the church, but even back to Proverbs. And I'm not going to lecture people on the hold that money has on us individually or as a church, but it does. I am hearing people concerned about if we don't do such and such, we're not going to have money, and in X number of months/years, our church is not going to be here. All I will say to you today is what I say to myself: be careful how much power we give money, because once we give money power, it is hard to get it back. And in the church, the power that we are giving money is taking away power, allegiance, respect, and authority from Jesus. So as we think about if we don't do something to honor and collect money, these bad things will happen. If we give too much power and attention to money, to mammon, our church will be lost anyway because we will have walked away from Jesus. The good news there is that Jesus delivers us from the power of money when we let him. When we let him. So, and in the gospel reading, Jesus is trying to get away for a break. And so he heads off to the region of Tyre, and he goes into a house, and he doesn't want anybody to know he's there, but they find out, and a mother brings her daughter who's possessed by a demon. And here we need to pause and say that while in John's gospel, from day one, Jesus is the fully aware Messiah. In Mark's gospel, and I'm going to guess in Luke's too, and I'll have to think about Matthew, but I haven't done that in a while. The revelation to Jesus of who he is and what he's about is not all complete on day one, but it's unfolding over time. And I kind of like that because that shows how God works in our lives. At least for most of us, we don't get it all laid out. It unfolds over time. And so in the beginning of this story, Jesus, I'm sure, is convinced that he has been sent to Israel, to the Jews. And this woman and her child are Gentiles. And so Jesus says, when she asks for help for her daughter from the demon, let the kids eat first. Basically, you don't count. And she says, even the dogs get the crumbs. And Jesus, I think, is opened up to what he's really about. His mission is not only to the Jews, to the people of Israel, but to all people. So Jesus gets opened up. And then Jesus goes on, and he's in the region of the Decapolis. And I don't do research for Take One videos, but if I was preaching this Sunday, one of the pieces of research I would do would be geography, which I'm not good at, because my sense is that the Decapolis, or 10 cities, was Greek and Roman and Gentile and not Jewish. So the man that if I'm right, the man that they bring who can't hear or speak is a Gentile. And Jesus says, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And the man is. And he does all things well. And they quote the reading from Isaiah, the deaf hear and the mute speak. And I would argue that Jesus was opened to this Gentile who was deaf because the mother had opened Jesus to the Gentile child who was possessed by the demon when the mother said, even the children get the crumbs. So thanks be to God that Jesus is opened to all people. To all people. We understand priority and category and inside and out. It's terrible, but we're seeing it on the news in Afghanistan, where we need to get American citizens out, and then there seems to be a pecking order. And Afghanistans who cooperated with the United States, we're trying to get as many as we can out. There seems to be a pecking order. And so it's easy to put a pecking order on Jesus and God. But there is no pecking order to God in Christ. Because while we human beings have finite means and limited amount of time, Jesus does not. Jesus does not. And so we can be radical enough to say that for Christ there are no outsiders. There's no one beyond God's grace. And that is, I think, the journey that we get to live into as people of God and as the church. So that probably the best way that we can be opened to others, like the man who is deaf, is to be opened by others, as Jesus was the Syrophoenician woman. So maybe what we need to be about is to put ourselves in a position of being open to God's grace from people that we might think are beyond or outside it. This would mean we would get out of the church building and into the neighborhood, not so much to bring Jesus there, but to meet Jesus there. So 3 sermons, say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, here is your God, sermon number 1. Sermon number 2, let's talk about the power of money in the church. And sermon 3 about Jesus being opened and our being open to God's radical grace so that we can open others to God's radical grace. 3 great sermons. Pastor Roseanne is preaching online this week, and this will be our last online sermon for a time. We're finding that people are back in their buildings, and even when their pastor is not there, they want a live presence. So as I've told pastors, you can't keep doing everything you did during the pandemic and everything you need to do in person. So you need to let go of some stuff. So we also need to let go of recording sermons and putting them online for a while. My hunch is we may need to hunker down again, and when that happens, or when there are requests, enough requests to make it worthwhile, we'll return to it. But for now, we're going to step away. In our office, this is kind of a transition week, a changing of the guard. Pastor Anderson returns from a week of vacation on Wednesday, and so she'll be catching up, I think, with me mostly on Wednesday. So if you sent her emails, left her voicemail messages, all of that good stuff, I think she'll begin to catch up with you on Thursday. And then we are nearing the week when Pastor Sprang begins his sabbatical on next Tuesday, which is the 7th of September. But having taken having taken several sabbaticals as a professor, I know that by the end of this week, senioritis, we used to call it, or spring fever will kick in for David, and he will be gone. So if you have business for Pastor Sprang, it would be good to reach out to him by Friday. After he is gone and you have DEM and other kind of concerns, as I said, I think last week, route them my way. You're free to route them through someone else, Anne or Roseanne. If you do that, just allow time for them to route to me and me to figure out what we're going to do or what the answer is. Give it back to whoever you contacted and them to get back to you. So if you want to do it that way, that's great. But build in some conversation time on the Synod staff for that to happen. On Tuesday, I get to journey to Chicago to see the ophthalmologist. I'm grateful that those visits seem to be stretching out a little less frequently, but I suspect they're going to continue. On Wednesday, we have staff meeting, and I have a meeting of one of the committees of the Conference of Bishops. On Thursday is the deans, and on Thursday afternoon is the whole Conference of Bishops, and then it'll be a quiet Labor Day weekend for me. Some of our congregations, 1 or 2 where I hoped to be, are being really smart and thinking maybe they need to step back and not have somebody from another part of the state, even the bishop, come. And I am grateful for that, and I respect it. I did get found that I might have gotten exposed this week, and so got to have a COVID test. And thankfully, I am negative, and thankfully, the COVID test was not as ambitious as it was prior to my surgeries on my eyes. So COVID is still real, my friends, and we need to respect it and take it seriously. So that's take one for this last week in August. I hope you have a happy Labor Day weekend. And if you have time, I would encourage you to Google the readings for Sunday and to spend some time with them. They're really rich. I'm Bishop Craig. Peace be with you.